What is the most powerful thing you have? Take inventory. What do you have that's powerful? I look out into the parking lot, by the way, and some of you have very powerful trucks. And so think of what capacity that truck has to move and haul. That's a powerful thing that you have. But maybe you're like, there's still greater power than that. Some of you, I also know, have firearms sitting in those trucks. And what power is that? What destructive power that has. But maybe you're not thinking of trucks or firearms. Maybe you think, Josh, with a few punches of a keys, I can do far more damage than any gun or any truck. Probably right. Well, at least if it's a computer in the hands of John or Tim, not so much me. I can make PowerPoints. I'm good at PowerPoints. But computers can be really powerful things. Or maybe you don't have a great truck. Maybe you don't have a big gun. Maybe you don't have a lot of computer proficiency. But maybe you've got a wallet. and wallets can have a lot of power. Could, I suppose. Noah and I went out to the race in Talladega yesterday, and I wasn't alone there. But while we were driving out, we were driving past the airport that's right there next to Talladega, and Noah's like, "Those are planes." I said, "Yeah, buddy, those are planes that people own. Sometimes people own planes like cars." He was like, "Are we going to buy a plane?" I said, "No, they cost as much as 5 of our houses." My wallet's not that powerful, if you will. But nonetheless, I want you to think and take inventory. What is the most powerful thing you have? And I want you to know that it's none of these. It's not your truck. It's not your gun. It's not your computer. It's not your wallet. It's your tongue. And today, I want to talk to you about the power of the tongue. We're going to do so from James chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. If you are following along in this blue pew Bible, that's going to be on page 1114. 1114. In James chapter 3, verses 1 through 12, James is going to offer 6 analogies to describe the tongue. Look for those while we read. James chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they will obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also, the tongue can be a small member, yet boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body and setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed by what has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. This is going to be our text for today. And I hope that you saw in our reading those 6 analogies that Paul uses for the tongue. But now I want to tell you our outline for today, what we're going to be talking about. The tongue has power to do 3 things. It has the power to direct, to destroy, and to delight. And we'll see those in each of these 6 analogies. The first I want to talk about is the power to direct. Read again with me, verses 1 through 4. Put 1 through 5, but I'll do 1 through 4. Oh, 5 is fine. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet a boast of great things. All right. So here in this, he gives 2 analogies. Did you notice what those 2 were? Horses' bits and ship rudders. And both of those are about direction. Because he says from a bit in a horse's mouth, you can make that horse go wherever you want it to. And from a rudder, as big as that ship is, it's a small rudder that directs wherever it's going to go by the will of the pilot. This is about direction. But what does that mean for us? What I want to show you here from this text is that the power to direct has charge over self-control, consequences, and influence. Here's what it says in verse 2. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. What a good picture of what self-control is. I mean, can you think of what the perfect self-controlled life looks like? It is in part about the direction in which you're going, and that every action is leading towards that. And he says if you can control your tongue, you can control any bit of that direction. Now, as much as he speaks of the bits that are put in the mouths of horses to obey us, who guide their whole bodies as well, he says what he's leading to is that if you can control this one thing, you can have the power to have self-control in all areas. I mean, think, if you can control your speech, he says you can control your body. He says one more thing. This is in chapter 1, verse 26. If you want to turn back a page with me, here's what it says. It says, if anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. There are 3 things that he just enfolded together in this chain of self-control. Your tongue, your body, your spirit. All of that mastered in the same process. It has the power to direct in this matter of self-control. But where you lead, where your tongue is leading you has consequences. I want you to notice when it says, look at the ships also. Well, they are so large and are driven by strong winds. They are guided by a small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. What's shaping the trajectory of your life? What's choosing the course that you're on? He says it's the words that you use. That they are charting your own course. Your words have a disproportionate impact on the life that you're going to lead. And by disproportionate, I mean in relation to the size of a bit to a horse or the size of a rudder to a ship. This power of the tongue is going to have a disproportionate amount of impact on your life. I was sitting yesterday with Noah, and Noah had a little bit of a moment, if you will. He just gets antsy, if you will. But in this moment, I looked at him, and I'm thinking, Noah, you have a powerful brain. Every parent thinks their kid's a genius. My kid's a genius. At least that one. And I love the power of his brain, but I also recognize that could be greatly curtailed by self-control and what he says. That could completely alter what is otherwise very powerful about him. And I'm just sitting there, and then I thought, wait, hold on. Josh, your words have the power to direct your life too. And they have a disproportionate influence on our lives. But then, if we're going to talk about stepping on my own toes, here, let me do that for you. Get back to chapter 3, verse 1. Because our words don't just have power to control our bodies or control the consequences in our life, but also control others as well. Chapter 3, verse 1 says this: "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness." Because our words don't just have power to influence our lives, they have the power to influence other people's lives too. Talk about a powerful tongue. It has the power to direct and shape the course of our lives. But the next set of analogies has to do with the power to destroy. So look at verse 5 again, halfway through verse 5. It says, "How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird and reptile and sea creature can be tamed, and has been tamed by humankind. So no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison." Did you see the two analogies that he uses? Fire and a poisonous snake. I was going to offer my own illustrations of the destructive power of fire, and having grown up in California, that's easy to do. We have fire season out there. You guys have tornado season, we have fire season. But I think some of you have far more direct stories about fire. Like, I look at the shots and I know that day is still hard for you because it can consume so much. Fire can be incredibly destructive. And when he describes what our tongues can do, they have the power to destroy. I have to admit, when I see the picture of a fire and the fire just spreading, destroying as it goes and everything in its wake, I think of what gossip can do to a church. Motivated either by a sense of what ought to be or revenge, people can start talking about one another in a church. And once that talking starts, you want to try to elicit more people onto your side and your way of thinking or your side of right. That fire just spreads. The cancer spreads. The leaven spreads. And leaves such destruction in its wake. Our words have power to destroy. And I can personally attest to watching a church go up in flames because of gossip. So, I haven't seen that here yet. I might not be in the loop. Maybe you leave your preacher out of the gossip loops, and I suppose that could happen. But, blessed church, our words have the power to destroy. Because the second analogy that he offers here is poison. He talks about all kinds of animals. He says, we've tamed every kind of animal. He even lists sea creatures in there. I have gone to SeaWorld. I have seen taming sea creatures, and I think it's amazing to see a killer whale respond on demand. No, isn't that kind of amazing when a killer whale jumps out of the water? That's pretty cool, isn't it? And they respond to people. And as much as all those things have been tamed, he says, the one thing you can't tame is your tongue. Now, we kind of wrestled with our hopelessness this morning. With a question, can I ever really change? Now, I don't think that he gives this as a, well, just throw up your hands. It's never going to work. But to give a little bit of grace to say, this is really hard. So if you're a person who wrestles with the words that come out of your mouth, with the control of your tongue, no one's perfect in this one. And I think that gives us a little bit of grace. Because our tongues don't just have the power to direct, they also have the power to destroy. And finally, they have the power to delight. Oh, I love these last two analogies. Here's what it says in verse 9. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. So he gives two analogies there. He gives a fruit tree and a spring. I had to recall this morning, there was once, it was a while ago, so she probably doesn't remember this, but I was sick. And I'm bad sick. And when I was sick, Samantha brought me water. But she brought me 2 cups of water. One, I just needed a lot of fluids. And second, my throat was really sore, so she'd bring me salt water to gargle. When was the last time you did that? Hope you don't have to very often. But when I drink water, like if you give me a glass of water, I don't sip that slowly. I sip tea. I don't sip water. I chug water. So you know where this story is going, right? I mixed up my cups. And I took that salt water. Oh, that was a shock. I didn't enjoy that very much. But the thing about our tongues is they have the power to delight, but they also have the power to be bitter. And James' objection here is he says, you're using your mouth to do both. He says, with it we bless our God. And then he says, and with it we curse people who were made in the likeness of God. Now, I'm sure there has been both praise from your lips where you use your mouth to honor and glorify God. But I'm also pretty confident that you've used your mouth for lesser things. Even in anger, like we talked about this morning, towards others. Now, is that okay? That's really at the heart of James' question here. Is that okay? And he says, he answers it pretty clearly. My brothers, this ought not be so. No, that's not okay. But sometimes we justify ourselves. We think, but God is perfect and people aren't. Therefore, he deserves our praise and they deserve our punishment. And therefore, from the same mouth come forth blessings and cursings. Can I share with you something that I really love from this text? If you read verses 9 through 12, you might not see it, but Genesis 1 is saturating this text. Read it with me and see if you can find those clues. Here's what it says. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing, my brothers. These things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond produce or yield fresh water. Here's what I love of Genesis chapter 1. God declared a couple things in Genesis chapter 1 as he is creating everything. So in his action of creating everything, he makes light first. Then he separates the waters and then creates land. And then he starts populating those things. He puts the stars in the heavens and all celestial bodies. And then he makes the creatures, sea creatures and flying creatures, and then he makes all land creatures. But he repeats in that the command that each one is supposed to produce after its own kind. And we just talked the other week about the law of sowing and reaping. What you sow is what you reap. That everything is supposed to be produced after its own kind. Do you see in James chapter 3 where it does that? It says, "Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or grapefruit produce figs? Neither can a salt pond produce fresh water." Each thing produces after its kind. So when you look at your life, what are you producing? What you're producing is at the root of whatever seed you're sowing in your life. A great analogy for our fruit of the Spirit class. So here in Genesis chapter 1, you kind of see one principle. But this goes even farther. Because in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, do you also know where man came from? It says that, and God said, "Let us make man in our image." Therefore he created them, male and female he created them. God created us in his image. But here's the justification. You're fine blessing God and you're fine cursing people, but the people were made in the image of God. Being made in the image of God is what is at the heart of our ethic toward other people. What is at the heart of how we're supposed to treat one another. Genesis 1 is saturating this. But here's what I hadn't considered until this lesson is, but that's what's supposed to give us a little bit of hope. If everything bears fruit after its image, or bears fruit according to its kind, and God made you according to his kind, if you take one corn seed and you plant it and it grows and it produces fruit, if you take the corn seed from that next fruit and you plant it, what's it going to do? There's supposed to be a process continuing there. And therefore, if you are made in and continuing in the image of God, you will continue to produce the very things of God. That actually gives me a little bit of hope. So at the heart of this is the question, what are you producing? You are what you produce. The tongue is powerful. It is powerful to direct, to destroy, or to delight. Here's my question at the end of this. What are you using your tongue for? How are you using your mouth? How are you using your words? This is the power of the tongue.